Wallace Nichols writes in Blue Mind, we're finally beginning to understand why being near, in, on, or underwater makes us happier, healthier, and more connected, and better at what we do. Hi, I'm Curly Steve, and we're searching for a greener room. Today I'm joined by Lizzi. She's an ocean advocate, blue health coach, seal rescuer, and all-round water whisperer. Through coaching, science, and story, she helps people reconnect with the ocean and with themselves. Lizzi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. What I'd like to do first, Liz, is just rewind to your childhood. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about, first of all, where you came from, and secondly, what was your sort of introduction to nature and to sustainability?
That's a good question. So I would say I was born in Devon. I'm really sorry. But I was brought up in Cornwall. Seven Bays area is where I spent most of my childhood. The first memories that I've got of being really connected with nature would be walking on the coast path with my dad. And he would know the name of every butterfly and all the wildflowers. So his energy was much more around the green space. So he was very focused on the foliage and the flora and fauna. And we would go to a place called Cornwall, which I think might be just into Devon.
Okay.
And then most of my childhood was then spent when he would go off flying. That was his hobby. He would leave us at Trianon Beach. So he would leave my sister and I pretty much to fend for ourselves with some really helpful health and safety advice of don't swim out too deep, it's the Atlantic. And we would go and look for tadpoles in the stream. We would run down Constantine Bay dunes and probably cause a load of coastal erosion because back then you don't know any better. I think they're protecting those dunes now. But we would be absolutely captivated by the rock pool at Trianon. I don't know if you've been in there. I would consider that even to this day my heart space. And very much the place that brought me up. But in terms of the connection with the environment, in terms of environmental side of things, I can remember as a child there was a competition to draw signposts around Cornwall. You might remember it, or you've probably seen some of the signs. And it was Mrs. Baggett says bin it, or Mrs. Baggett says take your litter home.
Yes, I have seen
was
that.
The little girl that won that competition, which sadly wasn't me. But I remember going around Cornwall and seeing lots and lots and lots of Mrs. Baggett signed and just asking about those. And you'd see people throwing sweet wrappers and things out of their car. And I can just remember, even as a really, really small child, being totally confused by the idea that you would throw litter away and need to be told by signposts not to do that. And relatively, the environment was pretty clean back then. But that's the first time that I really remember any environmental issues being raised in my consciousness. And I'd have been really, really young back then.
Mm-hmm. What sort of really young are we talking here?
I'm talking 5, 6.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Really super, super young.
And how was your sister older or younger?
My sister was 2 years old, 2 years and a half older than me.
So she could look after you.
Yeah, it's like off you go.
Off you go, 7 and 5.
It was the 1970s and the world was definitely a different place. It was sunscreen was optional. You'd spend the evening crying and being covered in calamine lotion where you'd burnt to a crisp. And it was a very different, slower world.
You'd get kicked out the door first thing in the morning and you come back when you were hungry in the evening, wouldn't you?
No mobile phones. You'd have a vague sense of on your analog watch of what time it was and what time you needed to be back. They probably still wouldn't worry until you were at least a couple of hours late.
Yeah. Until it was really dark.
As a really small child. Yeah. So much freedom. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm really grateful for, having so much freedom to connect with nature as a really young child.
Excellent. And to have a memory of that is really special as well. Yeah. Excellent. So growing up, you obviously went to school and then left school. What was your connection with Cornwall? When did you make the transition from Devon to Cornwall?
So not long after I married my husband, we knew that we wanted to come back to Cornwall. We were spending every weekend down in my dad's caravan.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a caravan, so we always had a base here.
That was Trianon?
That was near Trianon, yeah.
Yeah.
So we always had a base, and even though we weren't living in Cornwall, we knew that we wanted to come back to Cornwall. So as soon as we could move back, I think I was 19 when we moved back here and to Truro. And the aim was then to get closer and closer to the coast, as close as you could get.
Excellent. That's a great plan. So you moved to Truro. What did you do in Truro?
So for a while, I was still working for WH Smith. So I was heading up learning and development for them. So first of all, I was a store manager. Then I moved into their head office. Store management was okay. It enabled me to transfer to Cornwall. But actually, when I was working in head office, I was commuting.
To London?
To Swindon.
Oh, Swindon.
So,
That's not
beautiful,
so bad.
Amazing environment.
Yeah. There's a great swimming pool in
lots
Swindon.
of roundabouts. Lots of roundabouts. So I was commuting. I kind of missed out a step. I was between that, and it probably sounds quite disparate, but it makes sense to me. I was a sports therapist.
Okay.
And that was an interest that I had in terms of the mind-body connection. And that's always been a passion of mine. And also, at the same time as doing that, I was also volunteering in animal rescue with dogs with control orders, so aggression, so dealing with animals with aggression, which I felt fitted really beautifully in partnership with working in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Because actually exploring behaviour and triggers and status and those sorts of games, so the communication side of things was really fascinating to me in terms of my background hobbies, always including either being out in nature or working with animals, communicating in some way, shape or form.
I always find interesting the synergy and the opposition, shall we say, of animal versus human behaviour, and a lot of it's very different, but a lot of it's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky because volunteering in that capacity, I worked with a lady who worked both with prey animals and animals that were pack animals, and exploring the difference between those in terms of aggression, but also in terms of how they work together and how they protect each other and protect themselves. And it's just, I find observing animals really fascinating because there's so many patterns that we can learn from as humans to come back to reminding ourselves that we're part of nature.
And quite often that aggression is based around fear.
Generally.
And if you corner an animal, it's going to be fearful, isn't it? So don't corner animals. Yeah, that's interesting. So you were. What made you go into WH Smith's?
A really weird one. It was partly paying your mortgage.
Yeah,
so
fair
there's
enough.
partly that, and partly the opportunity to work with people. So it wasn't that I enjoy retail particularly, and certainly wasn't passionate about selling pens. Although at one point they had an amazing strategy, which I think was a bit aspirational for the business, but it was that they only had two themes, and one of them was education and one was entertainment. And actually I quite liked that, where you can kind of distill what is the idea of what you do. And actually, if you have a pencil, for instance, a pencil can be used to make art, or it could be used to educate and write. And actually every single thing that organisation sold really was either about educating or entertaining. And yet on the surface, it was stationery and books and pens.
What a wonderful way to look at that, because I'm a bit of a stationery geek. I love walking around a good stationery shop, but I've never actually considered that. Yeah, it's either business, education, or fun, isn't it? Yeah.
And so I enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the more exploring culture, exploring how we work together, teamwork, leadership. I enjoyed the human element of it. So that was partly why. And also it gave me an opportunity to potentially transfer to Cornwall.
Yeah.
And that was, my sights were set on, how do I get to Cornwall? Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, I was then, once we got to Cornwall, I was then headhunted to go and work in people development. So I ended up living in Cornwall and doing a lot of commuting. But that's where I learnt about various different communications.
What was that role again?
That was heading up learning and development and change management. So I had the opportunity to learn lots about systems and change and communication and how we interact with each other, and almost build my dry bag of tools, if you like. So for coaching. So developing as a coach and as somebody who facilitates change. So
all of this is leading to a, like you say, a dry bag full of psychological tools, isn't it?
Yeah.
And So what next?
So I was noticing that when I was driving home, I'd do that big exhale as I saw the nearly home trees.
Yeah.
Lots of people will recognise that sensation of arriving, okay, we're nearly home. And then as soon as I saw the ocean, I felt comfortable. I like being around edges. I don't like being landlocked in any way, shape or form. We had a stint where we lived in Taunton and it felt absolutely contained for me. So I was noticing how much of that sensation of relaxation I got when I was at the coast. And I was doing a lot of work taking people outdoors in the corporate environment to green spaces and noticing how they behaved differently, they thought differently, they communicated with each other very differently. And I wanted to set up my own NLP business at that point in Cornwall because I'd been training in that modality as up to trainer level. So I set up my business in 2009, and that was predominantly coaching at the coast.
As an NLP coach?
NLP coach, executive coach. I trained as an executive coach as well. So your classic A to B type performance coach.
So
coaching.
Just for those who might not know, can you give us a brief snapshot of what is NLP?
Yeah, so NLP looks at, it's neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro is how our brain operates. So our senses, how we take in the world through our senses. Linguistic is how we code our experiences. So based on our internal models of the world and the patterns that we create internally based on our values, our beliefs, our sense of identity, or our history. And then the programming is how we might then behave as a result of that. So it's this idea that we don't respond to the external world, we respond to what we imagine is going on. So NLP enables you to ask people, what did you interpret there? What was happening for you? What patterns are you noticing? What's triggering you? Those sorts of questions.
So it's sort of like a modality of change.
It's a change modality, and it's very much about exploring the structure of our subjective experience.
And it's really important to recognise that we can all change, and change is constant. Change is the only constant thing,
Completely.
Absolutely, the whole time things are changing, even rocks.
Completely, and that's I think that's where the NLP became a lot more dispersed, because whilst it's a modality that looks at structures and patterns, in real life it's a little bit more hazy than that. There's more gradients than edges. So my dry bag started with going to the coast and playing with some NLP, and then the coast started taking over a little bit and saying, well, actually I want to be part of this process. And did you notice the sparkles on the ocean, and what might they tell you about what's going on for you, and how are you showing up as nature rather than showing up in nature? So my coaching practice dramatically shifted with a load of other modalities. There's a lot around aligning our internal, our bodies, our heart, head and gut, so that we actually are able to even tune into the space. Because if we're arriving at the coast with sketchy energy, it will do a lot for us. But the sooner we can actually get into a vibe with the space, the sooner the wisdom emerges.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So what were the other things that you were putting into your dry bag with these things that you're picking up along the way, which are all... I always look at coaches, and there's might be a couple of sort of qualifications that you take, but there's always masses of stuff that goes in with that the experiences that you yourself experience, and then the people that you come into contact with, what they experience, and then with your coaching, what nature helps you to experience, what the ocean helps you to experience, what water helps. There's so much that goes into the dry bag. So tell me a little bit more about, apart from NLP and the psychology of W.H. Smith's and the beach, what else is going into that dry bag?
So working with animals, so being super aware, behavioural modelling, so which links to NLP. Things like multiple brain integration techniques. I trained in that modality, which is about dialing into your heart, head and gut, and the neuroscience of how those interlink within your body. I trained as a yoga teacher, so breath work, and a free diver. So really,
so you did your
aware.
full yoga training, didn't you?
I did do full yoga training.
200 hours, or?
It is, yeah, which involves yoga philosophy. So that takes you down that spiritual path. I'm not religious, but I certainly would connect with nature in a very spiritual way. I'm interested in quantum mechanics, so this idea of us being the particle and the wave fascinates me, and how you can't capture everything about life in simply numbers and lines on a chalkboard, and really asking those deep questions around, well, what is consciousness, and how do we really know we're here? So much more down the spiritual path. Philosophers, I love Alan Watts, for instance,
Fantastic.
And how he links nature a lot to what he talked about. Lots of modalities, but actually also taking the spiritual path of being part of nature. So I did a master's and explored leveraging ambiguity for productive outcomes.
Let me just break this down. Say that slowly.
Leveraging ambiguity for productive outcomes. Because I was noticing coaches were corralling people into these well-formed outcomes.
Okay.
And realistically, actually, life's more emergent than that. And if we can help people to feel centered in themselves and connected with nature, they're likely to make wise decisions moving forward. So I interviewed lots of people at the coast, so in the most changeable space that you can, and explored, how are you with non-certainty? How do you respond to unknowing? And what creates momentum for you and what creates inertia? And helping people to become centered in a space of dynamic equilibrium so that they can have a positive trajectory rather than saying, I'm going to move from A to B, not acknowledging that the world around you is changing moment to moment. Mm-hmm. And there's a spiritual piece to that as well, because when you open up your senses and allow the world to come into your awareness, your consciousness expands, and you're not just relying on your internal wiring. You're breathing with the space and you're sensing, okay, if I'm here for the now and this is it, this moment is it, how do I want to be spending this moment? And do I want to be spending that wisely and not creating harm around me?
So I was interested, we spoke earlier before the show about the different kinds of hats and how a lot of people feel like they need to wear a different hat for each thing that they do. But your philosophy is that there is only one hat and that hat is you, and you just do the different things, but they're all you. Am I right in that?
I can only be me. So I'd say the hat I wear professionally is Blue Health. So, and I've always loved communication. I've always loved exploring, what creates connection between ourselves and the world, or ourselves and each other, or between ourselves and ourselves. So anything I do is Blue Health. So anything I do is with the purpose of aiming to tread lightly. And my passion is the ocean. So hence the volunteering side of things. It used to be dogs with control orders. It's now seals, seals who are defensive. I do seal rescue with British Divers, Marine Life Rescue. That's a huge passion for me. But that's still Blue Health. That would still be Lizzie doing her animal rescue bit as part of Blue Health, or as a Surfers Against Sewage rep, Lizzie doing her beach clean as part of reciprocity, as part of recognising that we are part of the process, we're part of the space that we're inhabiting.
And we were talking as well about whether green is better than blue, and whether sort of inland is better than the ocean, but that's all one as well. And actually explain what you were saying about the blue, what makes green.
So I'd say, I have a model that I play with. So I now train Blue Health coaches. So that's my modality that I've developed, where we've basically dissolved a load of other things and created something very different. So we talk about 8 forms of water, or 8 channels of water. One of them is embodied water. Okay. And embodied water is in your animals, it's in your pets, it's in ourselves, it's our very cells, and it's our fluids in our body. It's in the trees. So it distills that it basically dissolves rather the boundary between green and blue, because if you look at a tree, it's only green because it's got water in it. Right. And it's a form of embodied water, and water takes so many forms. It can be imaginary water in our mind when we're dreaming of going to a beach, for instance. It could be linguistic water, it could be the metaphors that we use and the language that we use, and whether our language is... I have a real thing at the moment around coaching clients saying they want to work on their mindset. Well, I don't want to work on anybody's mindset. I don't mind working with a mind state. Right. Because it's more fluid and the world is fluid. But a mindset, you could imagine that means my mind is set on something and that's great. Well, brilliant. Have intentions, have intentionality, but actually I don't want to coach anybody who wants a mindset. So
that's fairly solid, isn't it, a mindset?
So, and actually what I discovered in the MA was that certainty is not the grail. So once you're certain of something, you have very little choice. Clarity, however, is great. So we can look at a wave and we can explore opacity and clarity within a wave, or transparency within a wave, and explore, well, what's the balance of that within your life right now, and is there an optimal blend of those things for you, because one's not better than the other. But actually certainty is not, I don't want to be certain about things really. I want to have enough certainty, enough alignment in my body and enough connection with nature that I can make, I said again, wise choices, not necessarily what's seen as efficient, certainly not choices that are seen as convenient, because convenience is another, do we want to be convenient? Convenient is usually, there's some real negative side to convenience. Convenience leads to using things up. And I don't want anybody thinking about using nature as a mental health resource. Because again, somebody says, I use the beach for my mental health. Do you? Because that's, again, a worry for me. Because humans don't use things well. When they see something as a resource, they talk about using up and throwing away.
So be in nature instead? Or
be with it. Be with it. Be it. Even better, remember that you are the wave. So again, step away from those boundaries, but partner with nature, fine. Certainly don't use it.
Interesting. So tell me about Blue Health. What is Blue Health? Where did it come from? Where did it start for you?
Yeah. So Blue Health science is something in and of itself. That's a scientific field that looks at our connection with water. So how it impacts us psychologically, socially, spiritually, physically. Lots of different experiments, noticing, what's the impact of spending time in blue space on our mood, on our mind, on our behaviour.
Sorry, interrupt there, but what do you class as a blue space?
Yeah, so blue space in that field is described very much as places of over water.
So
send
ocean, lakes,
by a lake, river,
streams, rivers.
Get somebody to look at some pictures of an ocean. Get somebody to look at pictures of a shopping mall. Do they feel differently when they experience those two things? Yeah. Do they? Is a beach at high tide or low tide more restorative? And it appears that at low tide it's more restorative. Do people with eye tracking notice litter? It appears that people notice very human-made litter more than they notice fishing litter. Maybe perhaps because they think that fishing litter belongs in that space, like ropes and things. They don't necessarily think of it as part of them. Whereas somebody's sandwich packet, there's that sense of noticing, oh, that's the human footprint right there. So that's Blue Health science, looking at lots of different elements with a view to making policy changes. So there's a great intention in that. But it also is about establishing a value of blue space. Blue Health coaching is about establishing awareness of reciprocity rather than a value. It's less anthropocentric. It's recognizing that we are animals on a planet, part of the process within the framework and part of the world continuing. So Blue Health.
So tell me what reciprocity.
Yeah, it's a long one, isn't it?
And the other one was
anthropological. So anthropological. I love words, as you can probably
gather.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So anthropological suggests that humans are at the top of the tree and everything's in service of us.
Okay.
Whereas ecocentrism reminds us that nature has rights too.
Okay.
It takes us out of that. From a coaching perspective, it takes us out of the 2-generation limit where we only think about our grandchildren to our grandparents and think that our actions are only that long. It reminds us of deep time and that beyond us, the water has rights too and nature has rights. So that's that element. Reciprocity is reminding that we're symbiotic. We're part of, if nature is giving us something and we need to give nature something. And more than that, we need to recognise that we are it. So, am I allowed? I'm probably not allowed to swear on this, am I?
You can swear if you want.
But it's the don't poop where you eat.
Yeah.
Analogy. So so with Blue Health coaching, there's all of those modalities and that ethos and that spirituality in it. There's Blue Health science integrated into it, which is the evidence-based piece. There's a lot around language, our language. There's a lot around somatics as well. So as a yoga teacher, really aware that our body impacts our mind. So getting much more into the body than perhaps other coaching modalities do. So in Blue Health coaching, we're looking at two things. One is, can we align internally? So can we get our body into a place that we can tune into the wisdom of our whole nervous system? And then can we align externally, expanding our nervous system and allowing the world to come into us? So being informed by nature and showing up as nature. And that's anybody who's with the Blue Health coach, that's what they're aiming for, because then they can apply that state of being or even that state of becoming because we're not static. We're a process to whatever the decision is that they make, rather than, can you come and help me with my time management? I'm not interested in having those conversations.
Interesting. So tell me about the mind, the heart, and the gut. What's the idea around that?
So multiple braining looks at those three things. In Blue Health, we expand it to the whole nervous system. So you might link it to more esoteric practices, so chakra alignment, for instance. But in embraining, there's three fields. One field is your classic neuroscience field of the head. There's the cardio side of things that look at the heart. And there's neurogastroenterology who look at the gut. And the heart and the gut people each think they're working with the second brain. So the heart people will say, this is the second brain. The gut people will say, this is the second brain.
Right.
Embraining looks at patterns throughout all forms of spirituality, all forms of ancient teachings, as well as the neuroscience, and says these things aren't separate. So it says if we're saying that we've got 80 to 100 million neurons in our 80 to 100,000 neurons in our heart, neurons that can fire and wire together, that actually can create awareness. That isn't working in isolation. And then in our gut, we've got 400 to 500 million neurons. So we know that we have neurons. We know we have brain cells equivalent in our gut that can make sense of information, process it, and create a response. But it doesn't work in isolation. And we know that our head has billions. So it draws our attention to when your body gives you a signal. It's about interoception, dialing into your body and say, do you know that squirreliness you felt in your belly? That might be something. That might actually be your nervous system telling you that something's off. And you might want to listen to that. So then interpreting and breathing into that space and saying, well, what is that? And what does the rest of my system know about that? What does my heart want? What ideas can my brain come up with to live that fully? And how can my gut help my sense of self get involved? So there's the role of compassion, connection, values, relationships. This part of our nervous system in our heart space tends to fire up when we're in that space where our heart, and we use the language, our heart's in it, and we desire something. Our head's supposed to be about ideas and creativity and problem solving. And sometimes it gets into a squirrely space, and we can go down the route of transaction analysis, emotional intelligence, those sorts of models around the stories we tell ourselves. And then our gut is the place that's supposed to be the part that keeps us safe. It's the instinctive part. It's the deepest part of us, and it's the part of courage.
Gut instinct?
Part of self, yeah, and it's part of self.
Right.
So it's how we can see behaviour that we wouldn't entertain ourselves and be physically disgusted by it. We don't ask ourselves the question, well, why am I getting a gut feeling about that? Because my gut surely is just about food processing. It's a reminder that it's about a lot more than that. So the aim in embraining is to align all three, but not to talk about it. Because even now talking about the heart and talking about the gut, I'm not in those spaces. It's to sit with and breathe into those spaces and notice the sensations of your heart when you're applying awareness to a topic. I'll notice the sensations of your gut. And then maybe say, what might that sensation mean? And what might I want to do about that to bring all three in? Again, if you only go with gut, then you're just going to be darting from thing to thing without wisdom. It needs to be connected. It needs to be connected and values-led, and it needs to have creative possibilities. So in that modality, there are different qualities and competencies, you might say. That is your head doing the role of your gut? Is your head the part of you that's trying to keep you safe? Maybe check in with your gut. How does your gut feel about that?
Interesting. So breathing is a massive part of this. And so breathing comes into your yoga, breathing comes into your coaching, breathing comes into psychology. The whole lot is about breathing, and that's how I guess you can bring everything together. Tell me about what your thoughts are on breathing.
Yeah, so breath work is amazing. My friend James Nestor wrote the book Breathe. I don't know if you've read it. He's one of the Blue Mind family. He came to a couple of our summits. And it's a beautiful book that brings together lots of different theories and principles around breath. Breath allows us to balance our nervous system. So as you know, as a yoga teacher yourself, so when we breathe and we have shonkiness in our breath, our heart rhythm is not as smooth as perhaps it might be. which fires us up either into that sort of high energy state, which is my normal state of being. As you probably, I generally have quite a lot of energy.
I'm similar.
But I also, that we have the ability, we have a dial, it's not an up or down. So if I'm with somebody on the coast, it's let's dial it down and allow the space to do the work. So when we breathe well, we can actually bring ourselves into a place of coherence, which removes turbulence in the ocean or noise on the line, however you choose to describe that sense of static, where we're not connecting with our body. And you see people either talking at 100 miles an hour, not because they're passionate. It's fine to have high energy if you're passionate, but they're talking at 100 miles an hour because they're stressed. And you see people, you ask them a question and they go, and they hold their breath.
Right.
They don't say, I don't know, what do I think about that? What do I think about that? My whole body, rather than immediately fire back the throat closed off, head-based answer, operating in the world from the neck up. And breath work allows us to firstly slow down, pay attention, and it's got that beautiful tidal quality. There's a guy called Phil Gilberts, and I'm sure you're aware of this quote. He says, when you exhale, it's not you exhaling, the world is breathing you in.
Right.
And when you inhale, the world is breathing out and into you.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So knowing that there's another way, like water, it's another way of reminding us that there's a tidal exchange there.
And I love that idea of when someone asks you a question, like you say, you don't fire an answer straight back. You just breathe, count to 10, and then answer. And true listening, if you really listen to someone, you haven't got an answer for them straight away because you've not been thinking about the answer. You've been thinking about listening to them.
Exactly. You say, how do I know? I don't know. How do I know?
Yeah.
The whole of me.
Amazing. So the importance of breathing, massive. And you talk about poetry as well.
Yeah.
This is fascinating because I've not heard of this before, but there's research coming out nowadays. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I was nerding out on a load of research the other day. Predominantly, I did the classic where you jump from one thing to another. I was actually looking at sound. I was looking at soundscapes first of all, and the sound and resonance of different spaces and how ocean spaces can have different sounds, and that fascinated me. And then I was interested in poetry and language and cadence. So it came from cadence and rhythm, and really thinking about how our words can have beautiful cadence, and they can change in pace and they can change in tone. And the actual words, if they're words that touch our heart, they create the chills in us. They create an emotional response within us. So there's new research now, not that new, but looking at brain scanning when people hear poetry and what happens with us in terms of from a neurological perspective and from an embodied perspective. And they've shown that poetry absolutely connects with emotions. And we know this. So all the science stuff is great to have as background, but it generally just backs up what we already know. But they show that poetry is different to music. There are similarities, but actually it offers something different. And I think when we step out into blue spaces and green spaces, there's a poetic quality to being in that space. And we're moved to perhaps write our own poetry or journal in ways that perhaps would not be evoked in the built environment. So poetry has been shown to really stir our emotions, and it's hugely underrepresented in terms of arts. There's a few poetry spoken word clubs. I think recently I noticed a new one down in Falmouth. They're doing once a month, but actually being able to sit and listen to poetry or being able to think in poetic form just fires our emotions and connects us to ourselves and the space.
And I think there's that. There's an LP one. You'll be able to help me with this. I can't remember the name of it, but where you leave something to question in a conversation, and it's the same with poetry, isn't it? It doesn't give you the answer; it allows you to find the answer.
It's beautiful, yes. It's probably Zygarnik Loop is probably what you're thinking of, where the unfinished business, and we go to sleep on it, and our unconscious works on it.
And I can't remember who it was. I think John, can't remember his name. Anyway, a famous singer put out the fact that once he's written a song and published it, it's no longer his song.
Lovely.
And he won't tell people what his meaning of that song is, because he'll ruin it for other people. Because as soon as that song goes out there, he's offering it to the people for them to come up with their own ideas for it. And if he was to say, no, I wrote it about this, it would be taking that away from people. And I thought that's quite a beautiful thing. And that's similar with poetry. You create your own assessment of it and you know what it actually means.
I love that. And it fits with Blue Health coaching as well, because when I go out onto the coast, I might think that a river is going to evoke, as the stream's going to evoke a conversation about journey and obstacles and all the cliche things that you might imagine. And people's insights are so surprising. So we have no idea when we step out into nature what's going to capture somebody's attention. It's one of the reasons I think that you are never going to be able to build a virtual coaching environment that can compete on an equal level with nature. I don't know, because that relies on whoever's doing the coding to decide what's relevant to put into the coding. Whereas if I happen to be out on the coast with somebody and a ladybird happens to land on their arm at a particular moment in time where their thought has gone to a certain space and there's a breeze and they take the ladybird and the ladybird flies off and it has some symbolic meaning for them, that cannot be written into a program. And we might argue that whatever's in the program people will find meaning for, but how limited when we have access to so much wisdom in natural spaces.
So does that work sort of alongside the chaos theory and the butterfly effect? You know, the idea that if a butterfly flaps his wings over the other side of the world, it's going to change what happens over here. I love that sort of idea. And like you say, this, I guess that would be a view into an AI world where everything is very coded exactly. Whereas, like you say, if you can't write that, you know, 100,000 people going to see a band, every single one of them will have a different experience, even if they're stood shoulder to shoulder, which is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
I love it. And that's as technology becomes more and more advanced, we can get closer to it, but we can never ever compete. And why would we want to with natural space? So
interesting. So what else? What's next for Lizzie?
So for me, I'm writing a book. So there's a book coming out next year called The Healing Power of Water, which is with Little Hair Press. So that's currently going through the painful editing process of that.
This isn't your first book you've written?
I've written a book on poetry, which we probably haven't got time to read anything from, but I've written a poetry book.
Maybe we have got time to read.
Do you think?
Yeah, would you like to read us?
I'd love to read
Is this one of your own poems?
This is one of my poems.
Well, in that case, we've definitely got time
Thanks.
to.
So I've written a book called Blue, which is based on the Cornish coast, a winter at the Cornish coast. It's lots of images of the coastline. I've gone for authenticity over perfection in the photography, because I'm not a photographer. It's whatever the picture was on the day.
I don't believe in perfection.
Yeah, it's overrated.
Imperfectly perfect.
It's overrated. So I'll give it a go to read it. I think, I'll give it a go. So this one's unsurprisingly about the ocean. Okay. Like the ocean, our sweet and fragile reality, a coalescence where distinctions dissolve and separation is but an illusion. Consciousness, a vibration that travels unburdened by time, the heart beats in rhythmic harmony with the world if we care to listen. Perspectives shaped by memory, thought, and ideas, a dance within the mind, opinions old or new, carved in stone or like shifting sand. The echoes resound, and yet are dynamic in essence. The breath advances and retreats much like the waves. Momentum and inertia, both friend and foe, a balanced flow of sorts. And everything just is. Joy and despair drift equally on the breeze, and the seas pass not for a passing emotion. The world keeps spinning. And yet connection is found in birdsong or the scent of salt on skin distilled within wildflowers. A forest floor gives warmth, surrendering underfoot, bringing a spring to each step. With light diffused, a myriad of shapes and shadows find form, a stream, bringing movement to the scene. I sense a transition within the pause, whilst busy bees collective in intent draw attention to life unfolding. Circularity in action. Dawn and dusk undivided and unified. A setting sun arising on a new horizon, giving the grace of space for the moon and stars to emerge. A time and space for everything. No questions, no answers, no desires and no control. Gratefully we lean in to all that there is, to sense and to feel.
Beautiful. Thank you. And this is your book.
This is my book.
This is your book called Blue.
Blue, unsurprisingly.
I'm going to have a read of that at some stage. I think that was beautiful. And I'm not going to talk about it because it's...
No. Don't talk about it because it means what it means.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's nice. I like that. And Thank you so much.
And I'm not a poet. We're all poets. Mm-hmm. And I think that's journaling and poetry is just another way of conveying emotional connection. So I'd advocate everybody having a go at poetry.
I think this is. Let me just take that in, because this is what I want this podcast to be about. Not poetry, but sustainability. I want everyone to recognise that they can do something. And it doesn't matter that you're not doing it right. It might come right at some stage. And it's the same with poetry. You know, you can write one word and it's beautiful and it's a poem. Or you can write a million words and it's beautiful and it's a poem. And everybody is able to do that. We had Matt Hocking in a few weeks ago, and we discussed how everyone is creative. Everyone has creativity within them. And so many people have been told at school, or been told by the environment, or been told by the media or whoever, that they can't do these things. And actually everyone's got that ability. Everyone's got that ability to do this.
And I think when something stirs your heart, you're reminded that you're in and of the world. And then you're going to feel more connected to the world. And then you're more likely to want to protect it. So we know, for instance, spending time in nature and blue spaces promotes pro-social and pro-environmental behaviour, because it evokes awe and wonder, and which then actually reminds us we're part of something bigger than ourselves. Yeah. So it's less the direct telling somebody to pick up a piece of litter. They fall in love with the space and they see that there's something in the space that maybe doesn't belong there, and they do something about it. Or they learn more about the space and human habits, and then they make choices that then they're not creating that litter. So it's about evoking passion and energy and connection so that we can be inspired to make the world a better place.
And you've come up with several initiatives over the years to help people to see this very thing. One of them was your 100 Days of Blue. Is that the right title? Tell me a little bit about 100 Days of Blue.
So it's not attributed to me personally, although I lead it certainly this side of the globe. So my friend Wallace J. Nichols wrote the book Blue Mind back in 2014. It was the first book that brought blue health science to the mainstream in a very poetic way. And Jay created a movement of people who wanted to protect what we love in terms of the world, and really shift the environmental piece away from shame and towards love, so that you actually have both elements. You have the element of towards and away from in it. 100 Days of Blue was to celebrate the launch of that book in 2014. And we just loved it. And we were getting more people getting out into blue spaces, and they were loving it. And they had somebody who hadn't been in the sea since he was 17 years old and lived in Cornwall. And he now visits the ocean regularly and has fallen in love with the ocean and therefore protects the ocean. So we continued, and this is the 12th year.
And what is 100 Days of Blue?
100 Days of Blue is getting near, in, on and underwater in whatever way works for you for 100 days in a row, consciously. So it could be consciously having a glass of water and marvelling at how lucky we are to be able to do that in this part of the world, not getting into the world of water companies and that sort of thing. But, aren't we fortunate that this this compound that's been on the planet since the dawn of time is so accessible to us. So it could be something like mindfully drinking a glass of water, or stepping out into wild nature, or writing a poem, or writing a song, or noticing biophilic design around you and noticing where there's pictures of ocean in the space that you're, colours of the ocean.
Biophilic design.
Yeah. So where we have things within our awareness that remind us we're part of nature. So this wood effect, or wood-based share shows the patina of time, reminds us that time is within us, and beyond us, if you like. Stone-coloured things. This room, is certainly evokes a sense of being part of nature.
Absolutely.
So it could be that. It could be painting a picture. It could be making a pot and feeling the movement of your hands forming the clay, and how much water is part of that process. But it's consciously connecting with water for 100 days and doing that ideally in real space and time. We share it on social media because it encourages others, but actually it's not about the social media. It's about, are you taking time to pause and be with water in some form for those 100 days, and noticing what difference that makes for you?
Yeah.
Because then actually you build that relationship with it, which again links the ultimate aim, so that we tread more lightly.
And I've witnessed people who have got involved in the 100 days of, and it's been a special time for them, which is well done you.
100 Days of Blue, I love championing it on behalf of Wallace J. Nichols. It's a celebration of water, and it's also a reminder, like a puppy isn't only for Christmas. The water isn't only for the 100 days.
And they don't do 100 days. They carry on, most of them.
Exactly. And it changes people's behaviour. And we started that in 2014. And there's lots of different initiatives now, not linked to 100 Days of Blue. They're amazing. Where a lot of more wild swimming groups emerging, so the likes of the Blue Tits, which are encouraging people to connect with water. And it's beautiful. You don't need to tell them the science. You hear people saying, "Oh, I feel lots better." And you think, you get it. Intuitively, you get it. I don't need to say, "Oh, well, do you know that what's happening in your body is this?"
Yeah.
But that's interesting, but that's not necessarily relevant for them. It's building that connection.
Lizzie, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that the world, and it comes from a horrible place, but I think the world feels like it's getting smaller, and probably due to war and displacement of people, due to war and climate shift. But it enables us to feel more connected towards common goals. So I'm hopeful that as the world feels smaller, we recognise that actually we have this one planet, and fighting and battling over it. As space becomes one of the biggest challenges we have displaced people due to climate, like the walrus is a climate change refugee, but we also have war-based refugees and other poverty, lots of challenges in the world. But actually, as the world feels smaller, we'll notice that we have common challenges and therefore common opportunities to work more collectively towards a better planet.
Excellent. And while we're talking about the walrus, what's the walrus story?
Walrus story. Wally the walrus found himself in the south of Spain, which is not where you're supposed to be if you live in Svalbard. Ended up in the Isles of Scilly. I was lucky enough to spend 5 weeks as his personal PR assistant and bodyguard. I built him a pontoon so that he would stop sinking people's boats because he wasn't popular for that reason.
You got called to the...
I was lucky, with British Divers Marine Life Rescue. It was sort of still in about the COVID time that I went out there as his medic, his personal medic, to observe him and monitor and ask people not to get in the way. The three biggest challenges in terms of people disturbing him. One is education. They just didn't know they were disturbing him. One was he was just so flipping awesome, they couldn't help themselves. And then the least pleasant one, but actually I was really happy by how little it occurred, was a sense of entitlement. And they tend to be three big challenges, I think, that nature faces in terms of disturbance of marine wildlife, particularly. But actually, if we educate and we inspire and we feel connected and we show compassion and recognise that the impact that we're having is potentially long-lasting and not kind, people can change their behaviour. And so I was really lucky, and he swam back to Ireland, and then he was spotted in Iceland, and he made it. We guessed that he made it. So, but we are getting displaced. We're getting out of range.
Incredible. What a
animals.
story! What amazing privilege to be a part
and
of.
he holds part of my heart forever.
Yeah. They're big old animals, aren't they?
Yeah, he was stunning. He was absolutely stunning.
And they do sink boats.
Yeah, and he was lost. Yeah, he's a lost child, essentially.
Excellent. Right, so this leads us very nicely onto your evidence. And what we're going to do is Alex over there has a little bell. Show us the bell, Alex. That's a lovely bell, isn't it? Yeah. Alex likes his bell, and he rings his bell after a minute. Okay, so we're going to ask you to talk about, for a minute if you can, on each of these subjects which you've come up with. The first one is the put my teeth back in. The restorative benefits of nature toward an integrative framework, which is researched by Stephen Kaplan.
Okay, this is the root of environmental psychology, or one of them. Attention restoration theory suggests that when we step away from, we have a sense of being away, our nervous system can relax. And we also, our attention is more broad. So we soften our fascination, we open our gaze, which affects how our brain and bodies work. We have directed attention fatigue from looking at screens too much. So being out on the coast enables us to breathe well, shift our posture, widen our perspective, and think clearly. And that's attention restoration theory. There's lots of other elements to it too, but that's one of the founding pieces of research that linked to environmental psychology and blue health.
Perfect. You've been practicing that, haven't you? Oh, goodness me. You're good. We'll put all of this, these bits of research onto the website so people can have a look at a later date. The second one today is awe, the small self and the pro-social behaviour, which is a research article by Paul K. Piff.
Okay, so Paul is a blue mind friend. So Paul looked at how are we more compassionate as a result of experiencing awe? And we know that nature provides a lot of awe and wonder for us. So it's when we experience something that's so vast that our mental models of the world can't make sense of it, that we go into that sort of broader way of thinking. The self disappears. So what happens is we're less aware of ourselves and we have more of a sense of wider connection. And it was proven through his research that when we experience images of awe, we're more likely to be kinder to people. So the researcher dropped some pens pretending it was an accident. Those that had seen the awe images were more likely to pick up more pens to help than those that hadn't. So it was one of the research pieces. But awe and wonder is really, really important for ourselves.
You have literally been sitting at home doing...
I literally haven't. I'm
Good timing. So your third piece of evidence is the emotional and rewarding aspect of poetry reading, which is a research article by Eugene Whiskey.
Something like that. It's one I've only recently come across, and I know that I want to dive deeper into that. But that's what we talked about previously, the fact that poetry impacts our emotions. We also have a bit of a dopamine hit when something rhymes. So we have a sense of like completion. We're expecting the rhyming word. And then when it's not there, that can create more curiosity. So it has a benefit to have poems that rhyme and poems that don't rhyme. And they've done neuroimaging on our brain to show that that works for us. But we notice ourselves having goosebumps when something moves us poetically. So that's a field of research around poetry.
I love that. I love that your timing is
watching his hand.
But also, I'd like to bring in there that laughter and comedy is so similar. So the way that comedy works is you either come to the end of a joke and you expect the answer to be what it is, and it is, or you come to the end of the joke and you expect the answer to be what it is, and it isn't.
Perfect.
And so both way, it makes us, it shocks us into laughter,
so
which
nice.
is exhaling.
Such a good link.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one, and I'm not surprised this is on the list, this is the blue mind, the surprising science that shows us how being near, in, on, or underwater can make you happier. And that's by Wallace J. Nichols, or as you call him, Jay.
So Jay, it's a beautiful book. Everybody should read it if they're connected with nature in any form. It's like an executive summary of some of the blue health science that existed at that time, but also tells the story of real people connecting with water. So it brings in a little bit more about poetry and art and philosophy rather than just the science, and really reminds us to connect with our blue planet and look after it, and reminds us that everything that we do on the planet matters. It's where 100 Days of Blue came from. It's also where the blue marble movement, passing on a blue marble as a sign of gratitude and connection, came from.
Amazing. Did you just ding that there because we came to the end, or did we? Was it actually a minute? He's good, isn't he?
I was
He's
thinking,
good.
I was thinking I could talk about that for hours, so better not.
And then the last one I've got down here is embraining, using your multiple brains to do cool stuff. It's a book by Grant Susala and Marvin Ocker.
Yeah. So embraining is, as we talked about, really connecting in with our body, dialing into ourselves and allowing the space and coherence to be able to make wise decisions, the decisions that are connected to what's important to us, what comes from a place of our values, what has creativity and possibility associated with it, and what requires courageous action and is part of who we are. It has lots of tips and techniques for aligning those things and can working with an MBIT coach as well. It can build on that experience. And it's very much about the internal system. So it complements the work of Blue Health in that it's about actually let's get ourselves into a coherent space so that we can dial into nature. Super useful if you're designing products and services and thinking about things like circularity, to just double check, is this a wise decision that I'm about to make or not?
Perfect. Lizzie, that evidence was fantastic and your timing impeccable. So we're going to move on to your achievable top tips now, and we'll use the same format. We'll give you a minute to talk about each. Your first one, are you ready to go? Are you ready for this? Learn about the ocean. We understand what we're taught. We love what we know, and we protect what we love.
Yeah, that's a Jacques Cousteau quote, or close to it. So when we learn about things, it inspires us to connect with them, and we feel a sense of guardianship towards them. So whatever aspect of the ocean it is, whether it's micro or macro, it could be that you get into whales and huge, great beasts of the ocean, or it could be that you get really excited about nudibranch, the aliens of our world. I think it reminds us that on this planet, we have both dinosaurs and aliens. We have creatures of the sea that look absolutely ancient and creatures of the sea that look like they've come from another planet. And that opens up our mind to all sorts of possibilities. It also reminds us of the interconnection of everything and that ecosystemic thinking. So I would advocate everybody learns about the ocean. It's the heart and lungs of the planet.
Excellent. And that's sort of that idea that there's still so many things that we don't know anything about.
Yeah, and I like that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, I think the unknowing is healthy.
It's the most unexplored place in the world, isn't it, the ocean? So your second one is breath. Connect your inner world with the outer world and question the ripple effect.
Yeah. So there's two things in that. So one is notice how you are breathing. Rather than get too formulaic about it, just notice, am I breathing well right now? Am I breathing into my whole body, or am I breathing just for the head part of me? And allow your body to breathe fully. Take time out every single day to breathe fully. That will enable you to recognize that you are part of the world with the inhale and the exhale. So that will also enable you to think about the ripple effect of your actions. So the fact that even your breath is moving in and out of you, every single action that you take on the planet has a ripple effect, and you can have unintended consequences. So it starts you thinking about actually what is the energy that I'm sending out into the world? How is my action going to impact upon the wider world and the people around me and the planet and the animals and the longer term? So it takes us into deep time and those sorts of reflections.
You're good. You're good at these.
I'm talking really fast.
Come again, Lizzie.
I could probably say a lot less and more coherently in that space.
So the third one here is mini beach clean or street clean. Every time you're out, do this as a beautiful act rather than a social media post. Make it a habit.
So there's something called, and I don't know who to attribute it to, there's something called the beautiful act that I read about. It was a guy that used that term. And this was then when we do an act because we do it because it's the right thing to do. We don't do it and look around to see who's watching us. So sometimes we do put things on social media to encourage others, but never put a beach clean on social media to say, look at what I've done.
No, absolutely.
So this is about actually beach cleaning because you feel it's part of you. It's like looking at a child and seeing they've got a smudge on their face, licking your thumb and saying, I'm just going to clean that off you. Look around you, see if the space has a smudge on it, and do something because you're doing it out of a place of love and a place of connection rather than a place of ego and look at me. So, and it's do it every day, so it's part of a habit rather than just once a month being shocked.
That's beautiful. And I think I think social media has changed things over the years, where people do sort of have a look around to see who's looking and to to post. And I certainly was a part of that several years ago. I used to literally walk around thinking, what can I next post on social media, rather than what can I do just to be a beautiful act.
Yeah.
Love that. So your fourth one is dial up your plant-based meals, not moving into ultra-processed non-meat substitute foods, but choosing seasonal foods.
So that's to do with carbon footprint. It's to do with eating as cleanly as you can. You might not choose to go vegan. It's literally just about perhaps eating less meat. And if you do eat meat, be really aware of how it's sourced and the husbandry of the animals and that side of things. So it's not banging my hand on the table that everybody needs to completely eat no fish or no meat, but look at the source of your foods and then avoid going into the super processed. So quite often people, when they go vegan, they choose a vegan diet, they suddenly go into really highly processed foods because that seems to be the alternative. You're not looking at a meat substitute, you're looking at healthy nutrients to feed your body and feed your brain and feed your mind. And that should not cost the earth. So actually be really mindful about what you put into your body, because it is the building blocks with water of who you are.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that keeps coming up time and time again, is you don't have to stop eating meat tomorrow, but maybe just have one less meal a week, or like you say, eat a little less. Yeah, absolutely. Question your investments. This is coming up time and time again.
Okay.
And this is important. Question your investments. Check what your pension is funding, for instance, and make a switch if needed. Ensure your energy supplier champions renewables.
So I went on a climate awareness workshop, and I went on it. I have to say, I went on it with a bit of, it's not going to tell me anything I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll go on it because I kind of have to. So I went on it, and I was not really as aware of quite how impactful shifting our investment would be. I was questioning some investments, but I wasn't really thinking about pensions and that side of things. And on that training, I've discovered that one of the biggest things that we can do is really make sure that be aware of how our money is working for us. So if you do have any savings or any investments, or you're going into pensions, you don't want to be, on one hand, changing to low energy light bulbs in your house, and then on another scale, you're investing in something hugely detrimental to the planet. So check. There's websites that you can go on to look at the climate awareness course I did. Had a website that you could check.
Yeah, brilliant. I think there's one called Green Finance, is it, or something like that, and it's and that you can put in your details there, and it tells you where you're at. Brilliant. So Lizzie, how can we get in contact with you? You've got a website, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Got a website, Instagram, LinkedIn. I don't really frequent Facebook very much. My Instagram posts to it, but I'm not really there. So Instagram, I like Instagram. I tend to post things on Instagram, connect via email, connect via LinkedIn, and connect with any other Blue Health coaches. So I train Blue Health coaches. There's lots of us out there now. It's becoming a modality in and of itself. So if you want to work with somebody that's going to help you align yourself and be connected with the planet to make wise decisions, look for a Blue Health coach.
Amazing. And one thing we can all start doing today to make a better tomorrow and help to find the greener room.
So I can't remember what I put here, but it probably was about the ripple effect. It probably was.
If you want to know what you've
take yourself
down,
to the ocean. Remember you're it.
Take yourself to water in any form.
In any form. Remember that you're it. Remember that you are the wave. Yeah, you are particle and you are wave, and your consciousness. You are it.
That's
you're not separate from. And don't poop where you eat.
That's a really good one. Don't eat yellow snow. Lizzie, thank you so much for coming in today. It's always a pleasure to chat to you, and I always learn so much, and it's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for what you've done for the planet. Thank you so much for what you've done for the people, and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of Searching for a Greener Room. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you think, who you'd like to hear from, any topics you want us to cover. Drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.